Are you looking for solid chess openings for white that actually work below 1900 elo? Well, this video might be for you. This opening is called the Queen's Gambit. The Queen's Gambit starts with d4, d5 then c4. At this point, the opponent has two possible options. To take the pawn, that is what we call the Queen's Gambit accepted, or to decline taking it, which we call the Queen's Gambit declined. The Queen's Gambit features numerous variations, but we'll keep it straightforward. Here's an easy way to understand it. So, if the opponent takes the pawn, or accepted the gambit, then push e4, to take advantage of the center. This is a very good central pawn for white, and the bishop is ready to take back c for pawn anytime. Then, 5% of the time, your opponent moves b5, attempting to defend the piece but failing to make any headway. We just have to attack it with a4. If he takes it, then it's a free piece for us, but if he tried to defend it with a6, then it's a possible lose of his rook. There's nothing for black here to defend it, and we simply follow the same procedure if he tries to protect it with another pawn, but we have to send out our knight to assist. Let's go back in this position. There's another option for you actually to move here, which is, instead of pushing pawn directly to e4, we push it to e3, defending the d4 pawn. This is actually a solid structure, but the only problem here is bishop is stuck. But the advantage here is there's a high chance of trap that actually works here, especially if you're a low elo. This is pushing pawn to b5, almost the same trap with the first one, but with a little differences, because we can put our queen to f3 that targeting the rook. We are up a piece and we have already won for white and are up a piece. I show a real game I play that uses this to trap. Let's go back to this position. If they defend it with a knight, you just take, and if they take it back, then you have a good center. Let's go back to this position. What if your opponent declines your gambit instead of accepting it? If he moves e6 to protect his pawn and establish a strong structure, then this is the time we're setting up different missions for major pieces.
Assemble.
First knight must go out first before bishop. Put your knight here or here, but I suggest you to get out this knight first before this one. Then put your bishop here or here. Then after that, push this pawn to be able to develop this another bishop, but you must always aware to get out this bishop first before pushing this pawn to avoid being stuck. So let's take a look, assuming the opponent will use common moves, and presenting a setup. This is the time to get out this bishop to pin, then black continue to develop, then let's get the other knight this time. After that, we can also be aggressive here by pushing queen to c2 before pushing this pawn to develop the bishop. And we can set up a trap here if black try to kick out our bishop in h6. Instead of taking it, defend it with pawn, because if the opponent capture it, then he falls for the trap. So black forcefully go knight to e4 to cover, because if not, knight is free. Then takes it with our knight, take back with pawn takes with our queen. This is highly advantage, and I can say it's already winning after this. This might happen after that. Let's go back to this position. So if you don't want to be that aggressive and have a fast development, instead then push this pawn to e3, allowing the bishop to develop. And let's say black continue to develop, then if black don't take this pawn, then let's out our queen first before bishop placing here to avoid losing our tempo, then continue develop. Then if black still doesn't take our pawn, it is now our initiative to take the pawn to avoid losing our tempo, and it's a good position for us. Here, we can choose to castle on the king or queen sides. Thus, to play solidly, castle on the king side. To play aggressively, castle on the queen side and launch an attack on this side. I'm sure you can handle now after this, so let's go back in this position. Thus, if you develop this other knight first and run into pushing this pawn, all you have to do is to take, then opponent take back, develop and defend pawn with another knight, and if your opponent takes it again, simply take it back. Let's go back in this position again. Do you remember why I'm suggesting you to push this knight on f3 first before this other knight to c3? Knight c3 is not a mistake. In fact, it is the most recommended move, but There is a possible trap for black in few moves and sometimes we fall for it, we're careless sometimes. I will show you how. So we move this knight first, then your opponent has different possible moves here. Black goes with most common move knight f6, then we're trying to pin it with bishop, then black move the another knight to defend. Then sometimes we will attempt to take this pawn because it looks advantage for us after. Takes. Black can't take back because of pin, but that's actually a trap. Because black can take it, a queen sacrifice. Of course we take it, then bishop before check. Queen is the only choice to defend, then takes. Your opponent is definitely up of materials and your 3 pieces is underdeveloped. So, the difference if this knight comes out first is, they can't do that trap because there is a knight to defend against the bishop check. Let's say they still do the same move but a little delay because you out the other knight first. Let's go back in this position again. What if your opponent doesn't move this pawn on e6, instead go on c6, the Slav defense? Then, we just still do our missions, develop the knight, then opponent also develop. We also keep in our mind that if black develop its bishop, then we can place our queen early in b3 to attack aggressively. So if they go back their bishop, then they lost their tempo and we can takes and pressure this pawn. Let's go back in this position for the last time. The best counter move for black is to move its pawn to e5 in the Alban counter gambit, and preparation is necessary for this strategy. Because if you take this pawn, then they take back and pressure your other pawn, and if you take it, then they take queen to queen and you can't castle after this. And if you develop your knight, they just push their pawn to pressure your knight. And lastly, if you take this pawn on e5, they just pressure you again by pushing its pawn to d4. You must prepare of this Alban counter gambit. I think that's all I can help for now.